Hello, and welcome everyone to the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group for Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. This is a broadcast of the Keshe Foundation, Spaceship Institute Education Department, and part of the public teachings in English. My name is Rick Crammond. I'll be your host today, as usual in these Wednesday programs. And we've been doing it now for quite a number of years. And now we find ourselves at this point in time where a international, worldwide event is taking place, which is the coronavirus that seems to be sweeping the planet at this time. And it definitely is affecting everyone around the planet. Whatever you think about the virus itself, it certainly has had its effect. And so that's what has been to the attention of people involved with the Keshe Foundation. What's called the knowledge seekers have been building what's called the One Cup, One Life replications, and we'll probably have a look at some of that today. But as usual, I usually ask if anyone has anything they would like to bring up or show to begin today's show.
Yes, Rick.
Hello.
Oh, this is Ike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. I would like to show you my twin cup of life. I have some kind of reddish color on the zinc on both sides. So I'm confused.
Okay.
You want me to?
You have a picture, you mean, or live video?
I can do live video and show you.
Okay, might have to do a bit of magic here. Let me see right there, I think. And I do additional magic by that. So that should get you into video somehow. As if I stop the share, it'll also be a benefit.
Okay, that's me.
Okay, I see you. Just let me get you squared up here.
So how do I turn my camera around?
Oh, that's on your camera settings. You have to have a little.
I got it.
You go. Yeah, just a second here while I get this. Somehow it's not up on my second screen the way it should be here. Okay, let's do it different.
Okay, so
just a minute here while I get this.
All right.
For some reason it's, oh, there we go. Do it the other way around. Hang on, I'll get you lined up here so everybody can see. Okay, now I can see, and everyone else too. All right, so tell us what's going on here.
So you see the zinc, see the reddish color here?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what that is. And on the other side, same spot right here. So, and that is my setup, so I'm confused. If I do take it out.
Where's your nano-coated coil?
In the middle.
It is. It looks quite red. Is it kind of gone that way, or not very black, right?
Well,
or is it just the camera, the way the camera shows?
No, it looks red. But I did, when I did it, it was black.
Okay.
Yeah, it was black, but it looks red. It's producing a little bit. It's been over how many? 4 or 5 days. And the other one is producing more. It still looks red.
And there's no battery hooked up, right? It's just
no, I just did it twin. Yeah, I kind of elevated it up there to the wall, and I use this improvise. So What do you think? I don't know.
Okay, so just let me just double check your connections there. On okay, so that middle one goes to those two. I see. Okay, yeah. And so you've got this red that's building up on the plate. And it's for sure a zinc plate. There's no steel in it or iron.
Well, I don't know because I've been using it even when I was doing the CO2. That same zinc I've been using. None of it has never happened like this before. This is the first time.
Just on the bottom, pretty much, eh?
Just on the bottom, yeah.
And I noticed the plate is quite long. It almost extends down to the bottom of the cup.
Yes,
and one of the things that is good to do is to keep the bottom of the coils the same as the bottom of the plate, but you do need to make sure that the plate doesn't touch the Gans on the bottom. And it does seem to be touching it there. And that might be what's affecting it, because that will kind of not short circuit, but it'll affect the way the thing works. Carolina mentioned that in, I think, the last workshop.
Oh, okay.
So like what I've done with some of my plates that were too long, I just cut an inch or two off the bottom, and some of my coils I actually shortened. That one seems better. That one doesn't go down as far, right?
It doesn't yet. You still have the same reddish. Yeah.
It's not touching the Gans, is it?
No, it's not. It's not touching the Gans. No.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The coils are quite red as well. And what kind of water are you using? Curious.
Distilled water, but sea salt. I'm using sea salt. I'm using this salt right here. Yeah.
Natural sea salt, right? Yeah. No iodine in it, right? There's just natural.
No.
Okay, that should be good to use.
Yeah. No iodine.
Does not supply iodine. Yep.
Yes.
And there's no iron parts that could have done it. So, well, what I've noticed in my latest incarnation of the One Cup, which is the second cup of the One Cup, One Life, with the copper plate instead of a zinc plate, I end up getting a red substance on the bottom along with the green. And that's been interesting. I thought it would go away, but it is continuing to snow red snowflakes in my Gans. So that's kind of interesting, and I'm interested to get more feedback on that. It seems like you're getting nice white Gans there. There's no redness in the Gans, correct? Or
no redness on this. Yeah, this is producing more than this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what other influences might be around? I mean, you got a camera lens, but that shouldn't.
Yeah, I just used it to elevate.
Is there anything underneath where these cups are sitting in, like on the floor, or anything? No electronics or anything?
No, my watch, I can move it around. It's sitting on the desk, a computer. It's not.
Yeah. Well, anybody else have any comments or suggestions on that? I know Dan got some strange redness in some of his liquid that he was making, and some others as well.
Good morning, Rick.
Who is that mystery voice?
The jumper. Hi, everyone.
What do you think?
I think it's all right with him, but the zinc plate and the coil is high. It's too long.
Too long.
Yeah, it's very too long.
Yeah.
It need at least to the middle of the glass. Yeah.
Okay.
And just make little bit difference between the nano-coated wire and the plates or the wires what use the copper wires.
Okay.
Let's say you put 10 centimeter the height, make the nano-coated wire 8 centimeter, just little bit less.
Okay. Yeah, this is
And,
pretty long.
Yeah, it's very long, and even you see this one is a little bit good because it's not high,
Right.
long like the other.
Right.
Yeah, and the other one might be affecting that one, or that one, you know, they might be interacting, that long plate may be affecting the whole operation there, basically. Yep,
Yeah,
good.
and Mr. Cass said, don't worry about the color because your this is a reactor. Your reactor is reaction with the earth, so
Okay.
don't worry about it unless your material is contaminated with iron. That's all.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
the Gans is white. It's okay, and I have taken some Gans out of it before, and
Yeah,
the
it
other,
seems good.
yeah. Okay.
Don't worry about them. It's okay.
You can get black deposits and white deposits and now red deposits. So, you know, I've
Yeah,
seen red
and
as well. Yeah.
Thank you,
and
guys.
and the nano coating of the wires, it's disappear. It's no problem because this is not just normal.
Right. See all this nano coated in
Yeah.
there, and then this.
Yeah, it's quite
Yeah.
amazing. Salt can run through, and the salt seems to help with the nano coating somehow.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Um,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was wondering, what was your supply for the zinc? Was it roof flashing, or is it the pure zinc source, or?
It's pure zinc. I went to Home Depot. I bought pure zinc and I cut it to fit this cup.
The pure zinc that's used for roofing, right? I think
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually, I think 99.4%. And the rest of it is a little bit of titanium and a little bit of copper. So I'm wondering, it might be the copper that's coming through as the red form of copper, the copper 2, I believe it is, or copper 1, whichever is the red one.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The copper, when I nano coated it, it was black, but now it turned out to be reddish.
Yeah.
You know something, Rick? I never ever have this colors what you shows, guys.
What do you
The
get?
redness or something like that. Never.
What do you get?
Sometimes white greenish, sometimes greenish white. It's all like this. But only what is the cup 2, when you use the battery, it become red because of the high power of the voltage of the battery. That's all. But
Yeah,
it's
I think that might have been what happened to mine. Yeah.
yeah. When you use 0.3, 0.4, it's beautifully it's coming out and no redness unless it is above 5 and 6. 0.5 or 6, 0.5.
That low, that low. I was recommending around 0.9 or so, no more than 0.9 in the 1 cup, but maybe 0.5.
I tried that. I tried that. It's giving this redness with my copper plates.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Luke, did he test the plates with a magnet to verify that they were non-magnetic?
No.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to do. But they would have showed like rusty, I think, if it would have been steel in it, you'd see a stain in the water. But that's always a good thing to do. It's the good test.
Okay.
So like my second cup of life, I get a lot of the red at the bottom. So maybe you're right. There's copper in that zinc plate, perhaps.
Are you using a battery in yours?
Yeah. Power supply.
Okay. That might be the issue, as Jalal was saying. It might be that the second cup's very sensitive to voltage, and over a certain amount will convert the copper to the next form of copper, which is
Okay.
the red one.
We're talking about the second cup of life, not the first cup of life version, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Copper unit.
yeah, true. But this one, well, it's special. It wants to be copper, maybe. That second cup envy. I want to be a second cup of life. This is obsolete already. So
Yeah. The second cup of life has no zinc. It's just copper, right?
yeah, with the copper plate, about the same arrangement you have there now.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I'll go off.
All right. Okay, what else we have, ladies and gentlemen? I don't see any ladies here, but gentlemen, at least. Any questions or comments, first of all? All right, moving right along. Do we have anybody else that would like to present something or show their one cup?
Anyone noticed the difference in producing amino acid in the cups?
Yeah, I found the second cup had lots of aminos, and the first cup I just can't get any aminos to show up at all. So I found that quite interesting. I noticed that right away that the big copper plate I put in for the second 1 cup is producing that amino acid layer on top. Maybe I can show it here if I can get over to that spot and transfer the apparatus. Gently. Yeah, this amino acid layer on the second cup is almost like it's a very definite oily film, not thin. It's got some substance to it, some thickness. So let me get my video lined up here. Video.
Rick, you
Yes.
must open your camera or sharing because it's not seeing anything.
Yeah, I'm doing that now, Dan. That's what I'm trying to do.
Good morning, good day, good few hours when you finish that lesson.
There is a difference in your picture, Rick.
In my picture?
Yeah, I think you are back to your origin.
Back to my origin. How so? Say what?
we see like in the in the picture.
How is it now? Okay. And there we go. Okay, so you should be able to see that. Just turn it over a little bit so you can see the other coil hanging there. And so the interesting part is on the bottom there, you can see how reddish it is. And that did have a pretty good layer of turquoise on it originally. You can see a little bit of it there, but it's almost as if it might have changed color, or it's more likely that because most of it's right underneath the plate, I think it's come right off the plate. You can see how it's rather hard to see, but if I had better lighting, I know I'll have my little flashlight here. You can see how this looks sort of bleached, but it's actually quite reddish. And it's got little bumps all over the copper plate. And that plate was just spotless when I put it in there. I made sure there's no fingerprints or anything on it. And it was really clean. And now it's got, you can sort of see a little bit of the textured surface on the actual plate itself. There you can see little bumps. Those aren't air bubbles, those are actual bumps on there. So it seems like they're like falling off, flaking off in little red pieces off the copper. Interesting. So there's no battery with this set up. I just have it with a piece of wire that goes in between the two connections. And there's definitely some jelly-like kind of Gans on the top here as well. That's quite, well, did it ever show up green there? Look at that. That odd. Huh.
Rick, it's Neil. Can I make a comment here?
Yes.
What I've noticed in my own cups, if the center, it's not really electrode, well, I suppose the nano-coated copper thing that's hanging down the center, if it's too close to one of the other electrodes, in this case, you've got it right near the copper plate, I find that the field strength changes and we get a lot of action on one side. There's it's a different type of Gans starts coming off. And,
well, that could be, although, yeah, it was a little bit. You can see how far away it is there. So it is more toward the center nano-coated coil is closer to the plate than the other coil, but it is a bit of an optical illusion too, and the wires also budged when I was moving them. But yeah, you have something there. I did do the plate a little differently than before. I have it arced out like this way instead of kind of concave the way I had it before against the walls of the cup. So I tried to keep it away from the walls this time just to see if it made a difference, and maybe it did, because a lot of it's coming from the back end of the plate. The front end's all kind of black actually.
And it's also something to do with the surface to volume ratio of your plates as well.
Yeah, I put a big plate in, and it might also have to do with the actual mass of the electrodes as well. This has got a pretty good mass on this plate. It's a fairly thick piece of copper. It's not just the really thin, like it's not like the zinc flashing roof stuff. It's 2 or 3 times that thickness. So it does have some substance to it. And well, we should.
I also got a better result when I wired my coils so that the space gaps weren't so big between the loops.
Mm-hmm.
There was a certain ratio between the wire and the gap. And Mr. Keshe talks about this all the time with the maggrav coils and things
Well,
like
that's true. Yeah, he did. Let me lower the camera and you'll see it. Talks about the sort of the relationship between these coils and the ones over here, for example, and that there's kind of a one-to-one relationship between these coils, and they each have a different strength that they are interacting with according to that gradient there.
Yeah.
And of course, they're also interacting with the plates. So, and the plate sort of acts, I think, with it, especially with it kind of arced the way it is, it acts almost like a reflector because it's so massive compared to the coils.
Rick, have you harvested any of the GANs out of that yet?
I took a little bit out, yes, and because there is a bit of red in it, and I wanted to extract it, so I did so, and the red has
Disappeared like mine did?
disappeared more or less, and it's just blue in this one. So that's interesting. It's quite a difference.
It must be the copper attached to the salt. And when it hits, when you remove the salt, you remove the color of the red and it turns blue.
Possibly. I think it might have more to do with the amount of oxygen in the water. If there's not available oxygen, then it might go to the first kind of, was it the cupric, I think. If it isn't, if it's got excess oxygen, it would go with the cuprous, or vice versa. I'm not clear on that one. So that would be an interesting experiment to see. Some people, for example, use a bubbler and are able to change their various colors using a bubbler. I wanted to point out the amino acid on the surface. That's kind of what I was doing here before I got distracted by myself. And you can see how oily that is? And it's over the whole surface, and it's quite thick, and it almost acts like a drum skin. It's much thicker viscosity than the water itself. So I haven't taken any of that off yet, but that started forming within 2 or 3 hours of hooking up this unit, actually. I was surprised.
So did you say that you harvested the bottom before you harvested the top?
Yeah, I just stuck in my turkey baster probe here, and just went in and took off. I wanted to remove that red stuff because it seemed like contamination at first. So I put it in my little jar here, and sure enough, it disappeared or went into chameleon mode. And now it appears blue.
I like to use the turkey baster to take off the aminos too. It's a lot more efficient than the spoon method, I think.
Yeah, I haven't used it for that because the thing about plastic is it could get stuck inside the plastic. It might be hard to remove. Because the spoon, reason we use the plastic spoon is it's like an electrical charge. The aminos adhere to it, so they come off easily. You don't even have to scoop them. You just, stick the spoon in, and it's enough to stick to it, and then it releases when you put the spoon back in some salt water that you're storing your aminos in. But different people have different strokes for different folks on that one, I think. whatever works for you to get that connection. You can see almost like different colors in the amino acids there. I'm just gonna throw my laser on it, see what it does.
Reminds me of an oil slick on water kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's like a barrier that basically hardly lets the laser light go through. Anyway, there you go. Like to get other people's results if they have any with this arrangement. Be good to know more.
It's Neil again. Can I ask the group a question? Keshe Knowledge Seeker number 315, around the 2-hour 56 mark, he's talking about the different cups of life. And he mentioned very quickly and very briefly a modified version that was very of great interest to the people that are in the group, the research groups working with emotions. And he said if you used a nano-coated zinc plate and a zinc plate, and then he mentioned then either a nano-coated copper or a copper coil. I'm assuming he might have meant a nano-coated copper coil. Always when these broadcasts where something's really crucial, there's a glitch in the audio and you can't quite hear which it is. So has anyone looked into that one? He said that is the best antidepressant Gans you can get and modify. And of course, you know, while we're locked in our little rooms we're running out of chocolate and chips, it's nice to have some sort of antidepressant Gans rather than just the normal zinc one. But has anyone experimented with that? Did they pick that up? Use a nano-coated zinc and a zinc, and the third one was either a nano-coated copper or a copper coil, all connected up. And he didn't mention whether it used a battery or just a hardwire connection like the Cup of Life second version is.
What is the time on the video?
Around 2-hour 56. I've noticed the private student groups, they're dropping in numbers. There's hardly anybody come onto them at the moment.
I think this is the first you watching the KF Wikipedia. Where is the protocol for one cup, first cup and second cup, right?
The Knowledge Seeker 315 was talking about the first cup, and then he said to make a modification of that, if you want to deal with the emotions, use an nano-coated zinc plate with a zinc plate, which you normally use to create zinc. But then the third metal rod was either nano-coated copper or copper, but the glitch in the audio just makes it hard to work out exactly what he said there.
Well, if you go back in the teachings, you can make a zinc oxide with nano-coated copper and a zinc plate, or you could make it with a nano-coated zinc and another zinc. That was always an option, and not too many people did that. So, or I don't know anybody who really did that much of it. I tried it a couple of times, but you're talking about a third party being added to it, like a cup of life, where you put a nano-coated coil in the middle?
Yeah, that's right. It was a cup of life. He was talking about the first cup of life with the 3 metal rods. And but he then said, if you want to work on the emotion to get the best for the emotional balancing, just change the copper to a nanocoated zinc plate or wire coil. And of course, I haven't been able to get together with that particular group who are working with the depression and emotional balancing systems to see where we go from here. And I'm waiting to get some zinc wire so I can nanocoat it and try it out.
Can you tell me where it was again in the 315th? What was the time?
Around about 2 hours and 56 minutes. So I was explaining that the zinc forms with the amino acids up on the top, and you collect those individually and you've got the best solution for emotional balancing. And the CO2 Gans forms down the bottom between the zinc and the nanocoated, assuming it's going to be nanocoated copper.
Okay, let me just play it here. And see what we have.
Good. So the salts you have created, you see on your cup, is coming in the same as the carbon was pulling in the NH, what do you call it, the amino acid. Now, the same thing, you have created condition of the Gans in a nano state. But it's in the matter state in the atmosphere. So what are the salt level of strength of the amino acid of this container? So you get the nano, what we call Gans state salt on your cups. These salts are absolutely perfect for, if you mix it with the amino acids, for a lot of purposes. But you collect them. These are, in a way, you remember Peter used to create copper or whatever. This is your converting the energy matters into matter state of the salt, because you have to understand the topology of the planet. The topology of the planet tells us very simply the salt level in the atmosphere in different areas dictates the life of what is absorbed. Life is not just by this conversion of the matter into a state of solid. It's a salt dependent. That's why we have salt body in our body become cells in the atmosphere. So you have these salts always floating everywhere. It's part of the air, because when it gets evaporated, it goes in, and partially from the condition of the extraction of the fields of the planet, we continuously create salt, the way we do salt, oxygen and nitrogen. So what you do, you just because of your interaction with the planet, gravitational magnetic field and the inertia, you're collecting salt, the same as you're collecting CO2. This salt appearance is more, because if you look at it, if you understood the technology, 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate. Here you created the matter, here you create condition of the salt. And this salt is most, and if you can, I was explaining to Wang Lin earlier on this morning, some of you see a white stuff on top of your, what do you call it, amino acid, you see a white stuff, because your copper has a zinc mixture. This white stuff mixed with the amino acid which is on the top, keep it. It's one of the best Ganses you ever produce in your life, because it's connected to the emotion and the amino acid at the same time. Psychological depressions, this is one of the best. In the past, I taught you to zinc for like emotional conditions or whatever. But now that you know, you can use 3 plates, and you can set your plate as a zinc, nano-coated zinc, and a copper. Now you produce in so many ways CO2 in one side, and then you produce ZNO on the other side. And by the condition of the field forces, you should get your Ganses up here of Zn, and at the bottom you should get the Ganses of CO2. And by gravitational magnetic field forces, Zn goes up there. You get your Zn literally mixed up with the amino acid. This is one of the best solutions for brain disease, depressions, emotional conditions. And some of you who made Ganses in the past, that you saw your Zn Gans is good for whatever, because without you knowing it, you mix this in it. Now you can purpose. What I taught you, this 3-element condition, is not just for this. If you use it this way, you can produce, you can start tailor making. In the systems, you can put 4, and then you see what happens. But you have to understand what you put 4. But be careful, do not use these so randomly. It has to be done by knowledgeable people, because you enter in a different dimension. As far as you're happy, please make a cup of life and leave these to the experts to do. I do quite a lot of these things. It's a machine, it's life, it's the beauty of the knowledge and the science. I know how to make a machine here that any of you enter any room, not like this, but the combination of these, that you fall in love. I've done it, and it's amazing how it works.
That's the one we need, the planetary love Gans.
Uh-huh. That's all we need. Well, it might help stick some families together in this moment of crisis.
Yeah, make love, not war.
There'll be a lot of, there's going to be a whole baby boomer bloom from this episode of having to stay at home.
Not for us geriatrics.
Those who lived through that event of having to stay home with their wives and family, it's very stressful for many people.
So where he's talking about the nano-coated zinc, the zinc, and then he mentions the copper. He's talking about CO2 down the bottom. Well, normally we make a CO2 with a nano-coated copper and a zinc.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get the head around, eh? Yeah, so it's funny they substituted the word Ganses for cancers instead of Ganses. Anyway, yeah, so what about that? Creating the CO2 Gans from the copper and the zinc. Almost hard to believe.
Nano-coated zinc.
Right, nano-coated zinc. I guess that's worthy of an experiment to see what you get.
I am doing it now.
All right. I expect you to report to us before the end of the class.
I think so.
Well, it seems like a good combination to create the amino acids, which is what he's talking about. That seems to be so important in this process, because the copper's in there. The copper seems to help with that creation of the aminos.
The thing that's hard is nano coating zinc, I think, and telling that you've actually had a successful process. And are you doing it obviously with the caustic method, but how? Are you doing it the steam method of caustic, or are you doing it the submerged in liquid method with caustic? And what is your result? The coloration.
I found the best one was doing the deep immersion with a lot of heat and keeping the oxygen off your plate by having it deeply immersed in the caustic, and it nanocoats and goes grey. But if you do a steam one, then you very quickly oxidize your zinc plate and you get a lot of corrosion happening on your plate. But if you do the deep immersion with the hot boiling water, you get a nice sort of greyish. And I start with a very clean zinc plate, and it goes to a sort of a dull grey, darkish grey, and it works really well as a nanocoated zinc plate in making the zinc oxide. It's probably one of the fastest Gans producers that I've used when I did it years ago.
So how thick was the plate, or was it thin like the battery casing type thin? Or was
it was the roof flashing stuff, but I've also used the zinc plate that was used for etchings. But later I found out that the zinc plate for etching, which is a heavier plate, may have an alloy in it so that it's a bit more rigid for the etching process. So I've swapped over and using the 99.9% roof flashing that we get here in Australia. That's what it says on the label anyway.
Okay, thank you. So you were asking, what was your question again in the beginning about the process?
Well, it was the question whether it was a copper rod or a nanocoated copper rod in this 3-element system. Because just thinking, as Rick said, we know that nanocoated copper and zinc make CO2 Gans, and he's talking about the CO2 Gans forming down the bottom. And the nanocoated zinc and the zinc making the zinc oxide, which is a lighter material, and it floats up the top with the aminos. Gets all nice and frothy and gets the salts in it as well. And that's the thing he says to collect, and is the best formula for brain diseases, as he calls them.
But the nano-coated copper and zinc also produces ZNO and CO2. So it would make sense that if you arrange the plates in the configuration that he did, and he showed how the left side produces a heavier ZNO and the right side produces more of a CO2, I believe, right? In the picture that's shown on the...
Yeah, that's right.
And then the two combination infuses the amino acids on top with like a double whammy of sorts. It infuses that at a more plasmatic level than if you did it in separates. And I guess that kind of segues into the part that I was hoping we could talk about too, is in the 320th, where he discusses atomic and plasmatic, and he draws pictures of it. But we can go to that after this if you want to. It kind of lays it out a little bit more about how there's a differentiation between the atomic and the plasmatic structure of the two. One is molecular and one is plasmatic, or the transitional state, or the intermediary. If we go back to those definitions.
Can I, is it possible that maybe Mr. Keshe misspoke? Because where he had said to put the copper and the nano zinc, he put a green there and called it CO2, but is it possible he really meant CuO? Because you should get CuO if you have a copper, right? Bare copper. If you nanocoat that, then yeah, then you'll get CO2. So is it possible he maybe misspoke there? He did say it twice, CO2.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Seemed pretty definite.
Yeah, and he did say it twice, CO2, and then he put yellow and put CO2 on the bottom as well. So but I'm just saying, if you put just naked copper there and a nanocoated zinc, I don't know, I've never done that, so I don't know what you get. But just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, well, it's possible, but I guess we would have to try it and experiment with it. Like he says, this one's for the pros. So how far do you want to go with it? You want to treat your own brain with the results?
Yeah. Well, obviously, if you put a nanocoated copper on the right plate and then one nanocoated zinc in the middle and a nanocoat and a regular zinc on the side, then obviously you're going to get CO2 from the nanocoated copper and the zinc. But would you get that with a nanocoated zinc in the middle? Nanocoated copper and a nanocoated zinc? Would you get CO2?
He said put the nanocoated zinc on the outside, the far left, with a plain.
Plain zinc in the middle.
Yes.
So you would have the nanocoated copper on the right, and then the plain zinc plate, which would give you CO2, and then the nanocoated zinc and the plain zinc on the left, which would give you the zinc. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I didn't hear him say anything about nanocoated copper in this setup.
No, and it gets a bit confusing because the nanocoated material, whatever the element is, it's nanocoated, that's the one that's generating the field conditions. That's the one that's getting the energy moving from one element to the other elements when you connect them all together. In fact, in that double cup, you see so much energy moving there that the plates are actually bubbling and electrolysis is happening. And when I put a voltmeter on it, you know, there's a fair bit of current moving around just from the nanocoated plates themselves, no battery involved. So if we had nanocoated zinc and a nanocoated copper, then there's going to be a hell of a lot of energy pushing towards that single metal element that's in the middle, which, you know, I suppose the only way is to suck it and see, have a go.
Gents, hoping I can bump in. My name's Carl from just outside Melbourne, Australia. And Neil, thanks for bringing that to our attention with the depression type GANs. What do we take from that, just to reiterate? Was it the zinc GANs with the amino acid and with a pinch of salt?
G'day, Carl. Nice to meet another Oz. So you're down in Melbourne, I get it?
Yeah, about 75 minutes north in the Central Highlands near Daylesford. I'm usually fanging it down the highway, listening to you guys rant on and on.
Well, you'll have to come up and visit the Northern Rivers Plasma Group. We've had about 200 plasma members up here in the Northern New South Wales region. Jimmy and Lisa McDonald are the main teachers. They've gone down to Melbourne on a few occasions to run workshops. So you must have been teaching yourself just from the videos, I gather?
I've met Lisa and Jimmy before, yeah, but never been to one of their workshops. But yeah, goodness me, 200 odd workshops later, and yeah, my one cup, one life angle, I was short of salt. And so I used some of this, about 14% in one of my...
It's getting hard to hear. Neil, you need to mute when you're not speaking. I think it's yours, or Jackie, your microphone is open as well. Because you're getting feedback, I think I noticed that before with yours, Neil. Probably need to use turn your speakers down or something so it won't feedback. Okay, carry on. Thank you.
So yeah, I used about 14% of my salt was from the CO2 Gans reactor off the plate there, and put it in my 1 cup 1 life. And the production was, I'd say, 30% greater in that cup compared to the other side of the, do we call it infinity cup, 2 cup, whatever the recent development has been. So I just sort of throw that in the mix.
Sorry,
Hi, this is Lawrence.
You put what again? Just a sec, Lawrence. You put what
Yes,
again into one of the twin
He
cups?
harvested the salt. He harvested the salt from the cups. And I think this is what Mr. Keshe said, and we just skipped over it, that it's the guns of the salts that we're creating at the edges of the cup. And I think we never collected it.
And he collected all that and put it into 1 cup, one of the 2 twin cups then, right?
Well, I was about 14% short. So that's what I added into the 1 cup. And yeah, the production level was impressive.
I see. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Lawrence, you were going to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say exactly the same thing. I realized that what he was saying is that we are creating the guns of salts that are accumulating on the edges on top of the glass. So, and he also explained a few workshops earlier that we should be working with the ganses of the salts to create the emotional connection to our soul. So when we use not the metal level salts that we first use, but we use those salts that are collecting on these cups. So we gather those salts, and then we create another cup from these ganses of the salts. Then we will have higher level effects, especially in terms of connection with our soul, because these ganses of the salts are the connectors to the soul level. They are, even the basic salts do, but these are refined salts, the ganses of the salts. It's like the aminos. We have been missing the aminos as a very important energy source. If you consider the setup, it's not only the nanocoating, but also the salt water that does the energetic connection. The reason why stuff separates and floats in the salt water is because the salt increases the magnetical of these elements, as they wouldn't be floating. And once we drain the salt by washing the ganses, then they settle properly on the bottom of the glass or the container where we harvested them into. So the salts are very, very important. And now he explained that we are creating a very special kind of salt, the Gans of salts, by using this process. And I think no one has ever really focused on that and appreciated this.
Yeah, well, back to Neil's question, just wondering if anyone had any thoughts on what sort of mix, how much salt you would put in. We know the body will only take what it needs, I suppose, so there couldn't be too much risk there. What do people think?
I don't think you're consuming salts because you're washing. The salts are you said you added the salt to your cups, right? Not to the thought of consuming salt.
Yeah, that's right. And sure, yep, you would wash most of that out. You're right.
Well, in the second 1 cup 1 life, when Mr. Keshe advises if you have the fever because of the virus, he says we can use the washed plasma water from the second cup of life, and he says we should add salt back into it. I think we should really focus on the special salt that's accumulating on our 1 cup 1 lives. We should also harvest those in a separate container, and I think adding those will even have a better effect than adding the simple table salt starting from a matter state. because what the point is that anytime when we create these kind of reactors, we are refining energies into a state that can be handled with our hands. It looks like matter state, but it's still a container for high level energies. So each component that's a result of this interaction should be very highly appreciated and handled with care and with with love and attention and whatever.
Well, my comment was directed more towards the psychological component with regard to the emotion, not per se the virus, but in just the production of a zinc-based Gans at a level that would connect with the emotion to soothe the emotion, so to speak. So the fear aspect of the virus, it applies to that too, in that you want to reduce the fear and anxiety that's associated with the thoughts of getting virus, and making yourself prone to being at the same energy level to accept that. He was just asking about the emotional of deep depression, like how this would actually work for people that are suffering from other things, not the virus. I think that's what the question was related to.
Well, I would say anytime when you have a zinc in connection with any kind of nano-coated material in the salt container, each time you create fields that are connected with your soul. The reason why we have the one cup, one life, the first version, and we have zinc in it and the copper in it, because it has the same setup as our body and our soul. It's the body part is the copper and the soul part is the zinc. And through the connection with the nano-coated, we create fields of these materials, which fields basically are a little copy of what we use as a body or as an appearance here on Earth. So whenever you create different kind of materials out of these cups, you already, especially the first one cup, one life, you already have a connection to your soul. And when you're consuming the washed plasma waters, or you spray them on your body, on your head, you wash your face with it, you're actually reinforcing this connection in terms of a feedback. And whenever you keep the cup going, you put new salt water into it, you harvest from it, etc. Each time you're reinforcing this feedback loop from your soul to the soul of the cup, and from the soul of the cup back to your soul. Even the whole operation of creating the one cup, one life is a form of balancing of our own soul and releasing releasing excess energies and converting them into something good. So when we are using the ganses, or we're harvesting the ganses, and then we're using the Gans plasma water, it's another layer of these fields. Each time we're going deeper, as Mario loves to say, we're drilling down into the strengths of the fields. And the point I wanted to make was the Gans of the salts is because Mr. Keshe talked about, in my understanding, about especially this level of filtering, is that we should very carefully harvest those salts and create another cup which uses these higher level salts as the electrolyte, or whatever you may call them, the connector between the nano coating and the metals that we have.
Yes, I totally agree. And it goes back to the point that you were making about the Gans of Gans, where you started out with more of a matter state Gans when you started with your plates, but what you created from it is Gans, but this salt is like a byproduct of a Gans of a Gans. And so to take that one step further, if you harvest those salts to use, as you say, you're like your electrolyte, but actually it's the medium of which we create the gravitational field in the cup, that takes the whole nother process to the next level, like a GANs of a GANs of a GANs. But I don't know if it makes much sense to go past a third level, but because at that point you should be trying to focus on the fields, but I understand what you're saying, and that seems to be what I see also.
It's exactly as Alex showed us, was the orange on top of the glass, where he put the ganses in small containers around the glass. I don't think he put specifically salt into that water, but he still converted the fields of the orange, which is also a form of Gans, into that water. So if we create Ganses with these 1 cup, 1 lives, whether the first cup or the second cup, then we harvest the Ganses. Then we have the special kind of salt. Then we can use those harvested Ganses and the special kind of salt to create this another cup, which will be the Gans of the Ganses. So that it's like the orange cup, where you put the Ganses around the cup, you put the special harvested salt into the cup, and I don't know what kind of element you need to connect with to have the nano coating in the center, but most probably we will use just a simple nano coated copper wire, just as we used earlier, because that's the wide broadband antenna that gathers all the fields that are around it and then emits them in form of a conversion. You know, this is the black hole generator that we have at our hands and at our disposal. And then through these second level entities, the Ganses of the metals and the Ganses of the salts, with in interaction with the center nano coated copper, I think we will have that what you're talking about, this second or third generation of Ganses. And those will be, through the process of filtering, again, much more powerful than what we have at the moment. But I think these are the topics that Caroline said we shouldn't be talking about in public teachings, possibly because people are already confused how to do the simple 1 cup, 1 life and the second 1 cup, 1 life. There are thousands of questions. And whenever we do, whenever we have ideas about how to improve things, we are creating a level of confusion because we are increasing the level of complexity. So I even think, I even think
Hate to pull the plug on your boat, but that's a
yeah. I was even talking about potassium many times, but I think I found the solution. You don't need to work with potassium because Mr. Keshe explained that you have the fields of the calcium in the 1 cup, 1 life already, because the plasmatic difference from the nano-coated copper to the salt, which is about 20, to the 60 is about 40. So you already are at the level of potassium and calcium and all the other things in the plasmatic field strength ratio or level. So you already have the thing which we call this magic energy source already in there. Also, we have the potassium in the air, as he explained some teachings earlier. So we don't need to add anything, because just by means of adding the sodium chloride, the table salt, we are already creating the plasmatic fields that attract all the other fields that are needed for this complete reaction to go on. But take home message, collect the salts.
Carl asked a question before. This is Neil again. I'd just like to answer his question. It was regarding the zinc. Over the years, I've made and gifted hundreds of plasma patches for various people with various, and always asked for feedbacks back. And I found that the zinc is extremely good for alleviating anxiety when you place a patch on the chest or on your head. Insomnia, it helps with a patch underneath your pillow. And some of the other, I've had some very interesting results with schizophrenia as well. that the zinc seemed to, depending on the type of schizophrenia, or some people like to use the word psychic parasites, but I found that the zinc has some sort of effect on that condition. So when we move to this next level that he's talking about, then we might find a much greater results coming back when we've got the zinc and the aminos and the salts in this triple cup system, triple element cup system. Gans of a Gans, I reported on the chat that I made a Gans of a Gans. I thought I was making a Gans of a Gans of CO2. I ended up with a very olivey green, dark precipitate in the bottom of the 20%, no, it was 30% salt. The higher the salt level, it seems to pull the fields and create the Ganses much quicker and much easier. And those people have held that Gans. It's not very much, about 1 cubic centimeter I managed to get, and I haven't been able to repeat this experiment. There was a cup of life going on within 6 inches of that kit of, it was just a tub of salt water with a couple of external patches, copper and CO2. I think we discussed this, Rick, one of the earlier workshops. Those people have held that Gans of the Gans. It's extremely strong energy. They feel it pulsing up their hand and right up their arm. So no idea what it is, but it obviously is a very heavy, strong field that's being created. Whether it's got copper fields or even greater, I'm not sure. One of the other private student groups I'm involved in, I'm not sure if anybody else is in that group, where we're creating a shielding effect from electromagnetic radiation. Some of those were talking about a lead Gans, that Mr. Keshe was talking about a lead Gans and a sulfur Gans.
I know we remember we kind of agreed not to talk about the lead.
Exactly, and that's why I'm not talking about the lead. I'm asking the question about bismuth, though, which is right next to lead, and bismuth on the some of the salts of bismuth, bismuth oxide and bismuth oxychloride, they're non-toxic. And I was thinking the bismuth is, would that be a way that we could create the strong enough fields to create that shielding effect? But this is not the group to talk about that, but I'll just
to give you a hint, just to give you a hint, it's the sinking effect of lead and the energy level of CH3. Those two variations, if you can set up a star formation with different gradients of mixture of those two. I don't want to really go into this because it was covered in like I want to say like the 210s or something workshop that I asked that question about how to create this. You'll have to learn how lead sinks and CH3 gives. So you create a spectrum that kind of produces like the Iranian shielding thing where they can't look in because no waves will get through it. But I don't really want to talk about that because we tried to say we didn't want to talk about lead to get people confused. But I hope that helps.
Hey, it's Carl again. I just thought I'd bump in because I'm someone who's suffered from EMF for the last 20 odd years. And I was lucky enough to visit Gil Rasmussen up in the north of Byron Bay here in Australia, and stood next to his dynamic reactor for a minute or two. Totally resonated through the body, and I felt that tingle you get all around my brain. And I'm sort of someone who, when I answered the mobile phone, would feel like a hot sonic pin going from one side of my head to the other, and a whole side of my body warming up. But yeah, a few days after that, I, for some reason, answered a mobile phone, which I rarely did, and I felt shielded. I did not feel any of those typical pains I felt. Now, I can't tell you what was in that reactor, but certainly a story I've told many times.
I could answer that for you, Carl. I built that dynamic reactor system for Gil. I made many of them for different people up here. I have a similar unit myself in a star octahedron or a Merkabah pattern. It's just CO2 and zinc in those reactors in different combinations. But what we have found up here, one of our group also owns a Therify, which is developed by Dan Winter and that Canadian engineer. And the Therify is a sort of a plasma, but it's using a Tesla coil and noble gases. He had a few clients come in who also have that EMF sensitivity and sickness, and it's so bad for them they actually have to live in a Faraday shield protected house. And one of them has a Faraday shield built onto the back of his pickup truck. When it gets too much, he jumps into that wherever he may be. He would go visit and have a short session in the Therify. Therify usually had 3 or 4 minute sessions in that device. And it would fortify him for a number of days where he wouldn't be affected. So it seems to be altering your immune system and the way your body responds to electromagnetic radiations. I think the Gans solution is better than the Therify device, and besides, the Therify is a $30,000 machine. So spinning a few of these dynamic reactors with the copper, and particularly if you use a geometric star formation, which is what I've taught, was Gil's in the star formation or still in the cross version?
I think there was only one working. It was a silver metal ball and motor.
Yeah, it's a Chenlin reactor. You can buy for, well, you used to be able to buy from China for $100 each.
Because I've got those plastic ones, and I remember you guys talking about it a couple of months ago, and I almost pulled over the side of the road to tell you my story. Because yeah, it was one of those moments you just go, what the hell was that? But I finally had 3 of Chen's plastic reactors going in the middle of my living room, and for some silly reason I had 2 good friends around, and we were talking around it. It was almost like we were standing around a fire telling stories, and one of the women was a Palestinian activist talking about the trouble she has there, and she used the word destroy. And I swear one of the reactors jumped across the table towards her about 2 or 3 centimeters and then totally stopped, never worked again. So I've been dreaming of finding out where Gil got his reactors from. So I need to update on those plastic ones because they just keep breaking.
Yes, you have to be very careful what you say within these spinning water systems. Water absorbs not only your emotions and fields, but also what you're thinking. I have some very strange interactions with my dynamic reactors. At times I've posted videos and we've discussed the field interactions in previous workshops. Rick will remember the wobbling ball situation. I can now just look at it and say why you're wobbling, and then it'll slow down and then become very calm again, and it changes with the environment as well. So these are very interactive systems, and it's very important when they're spinning, if you've got the Ganses in them, be careful what you're thinking and what you're saying. The water will absorb those fields and carry those fields, and as you saw, it sounds like that one jumped off the table and destroyed itself.
So currently I have a star formation set up using ping pong balls on the computer fans, and I have the zinc. I have the lead CH3 combination in different gradients in 3 different balls, and it produces the shielding effect that you were talking about. And I'm trying to think, it's around the 190s, 200s that I asked a specific question, and we talked about how to create that. And Mr. Keshe went into it for a brief period of time. I just don't remember exactly when it was, though. But as you say, certain emotions, I can see the balls wobble because you can't get them perfectly on the fan, but you can do your best to get them on the center line so that they don't wobble. But what I've noticed is that during certain emotional times, they change vibration because I run them 24/7. They've been running for 24/7 basically for years now. I'm surprised how long these things can run continuously, but they kind of produce a different harmonic in the room at different times. I don't know if you've felt anything like that, or like something's happening and I'll hear one start to wobble and I may be in the other room and I can go back and then all of a sudden the pitch will change. So it's like things that are coming into this room are disrupting it, and then it finds a balance with it. I hope that helps.
Yes, they definitely speed up and slow down by themselves, and they get mine has a heartbeat, and the heartbeat speeds up and slows down and changes. And depending on the environment and the day and how I feel, they'll also interact and start wobbling or not wobbling or be perfectly calm and spinning perfectly. And then the next day, something else will happen. They're amazing how they all interact with the environment, with the people around them. And this is something I've come across before because I know Joe of the Joe Cell invention, and he used to talk about when the car was running on the Joe Cell, if somebody's thoughts were very negative or they were looking to make money, this thing had suddenly stopped working. And Joe couldn't explain why it would suddenly stop working until he started interrogating the people that were coming into the environment. And I've seen this way back in the days when I was a IT tech with Apple computers systems in the very early days when they were very sus to external electromagnetic radiation. Some people would walk past a computer and it would crash. And usually they didn't like computers and they would crash it. I don't know if you remember that, Rick, being Mr. Fix-It, that some people could crash their computers just by going near it.
Yes, yeah, indeed. I had some very odd things happen, especially with, like you're saying, the earlier models of computers, which gave off a lot more electromagnetic fields. The newer monitors and iMacs and that kind of thing, they hardly put out any electromagnetic fields. My detector doesn't even beep around them, or my other radio doesn't get a lot of emissions, but some of the earlier screens, the earlier iMac screens, are very active, and it's a lot of fun. You can hear all the innards of your computer through a basic crystal radio circuit.
Have anybody experienced their cameras failing or their SD cards being wiped clean trying to take pictures of reactors or anything like that?
Sometimes if you get too close with a cell phone, it can kick things out, like both with a maggrav or spinning reactors. I've taken a signal off of a spinning reactor that is with my little crystal radio setup. I've actually gotten a sound off of a spinning reactor, and it's quite amazing that it puts out a signal, and it's not the motor. I isolated it as not the motor putting out the signal. I can even cut off the motor or just spin the sphere without the motor at all. That spinning plastic sphere has a certain, in old technology, you'd say it might have a charge or an uneven charge, so that when it rotates, it actually puts out a pulse. And each reactor is different. And it does depend, if you put different Ganses inside, they have a different sound or different pulse that they put out. And like I say, it's not associated with the actual motor, but it is tied in with the speed at certain basically the faster it goes, the louder it gets in a way, or you can hear the sound, the difference in frequency. So definitely they do put out something just in the regular electromagnetic field spectrum, let alone, you know, that's just a hint or an indicator perhaps of the plasma state.
What about just a Gans, trying to take pictures of a Gans?
Pictures of? What do you mean? Oh,
So,
like while it's spinning? Or?
No, just if you made some Gans and you wanted to take a picture of it to show someone, have you ever had a problem taking a picture of a Gans?
Well, other than the pictures never seem to do justice for the Gans itself, it's hard. I think it's because the Gans is actually dynamic. Even when it looks like it's settled out, it's still dynamic. And our cameras aren't designed to go dynamic, really. Even in video, it's still just individual screens.
No, I just had an interesting experience one time. I tried to take many pictures of a Gans, but it kept my camera kept failing. It wouldn't let me to do it.
Yeah, well, that kind of thing can definitely happen.
Several weeks ago, I sent my drone up 100 meters up into the cloud, or just below the cloud layer, to take some survey pictures of a property. And something hiding in the clouds turned off my live feed to the ground and stopped me from taking photos. I brought it back down and shut it down and restarted it and reformatted the card. I got the photos working on the ground, went back up, but it would not let me see what was up there. Something was playing around, and there was no mobile phone towers anywhere near there. So yes, electromagnetics can be specific, and they can play with your technology, and depending on who's generating those electromagnetic fields and in what frequencies, they can have a bit of fun with you and your basic primitive technology that we're using in this current 21st century Earth.
Did you say that you had spinning reactors of some sort trying to create a shield?
That's a group. That's one of the projects that I'm involved with, the private students, and we're trying to develop shieldings for 4G, 5G, and also the Oasis effect to protect us in Australia from raging bushfires. How did you go, Carl? Did you have many fires heading your direction? But we certainly did up here where I am.
Sorry, just trying to sneak in cooking some dinner. It's amazing the amount of things you get to do whilst these broadcasts are going, hey? Bushfires were 15, 20 kilometres away from us. Only lasted a week, so it was pretty minor in the scale of things. But yeah, there's certainly something that's driving me to finally build a MagRav, and one day I'll be able to figure out some decent capacitor instructions. I'm stuck on that. Yeah, but let's hope these oases continue in development, because we're certainly going to need them, whether it's hot or cold. I must say, I've been missing Gianni the last few weeks. I haven't heard him for a while. If there was anyone who was going to get the Plasma Award of 2019, it was him. He totally blew me away with his greenhouse stories. Love to hear an update on that sometime.
I thought Johnny was here, but I don't see him here right now.
He's been present lately, but he hasn't talked much.
He's here, but he's no have the microphone setting, I think. He's quite busy to making dumb.
He's there right now.
Oh, hi, Johnny. Did you want to say anything, Johnny?
Apparently, he hasn't got a microphone.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Well, what else have we got here? Any other? We were going to look at the 320th the Knowledge Seekers Workshop, I think. Just
I
to
mentioned it. Oh, go ahead.
Rick, hi, it's Dean here from the UK. Can I ask a quick question to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm thinking about at the moment was producing these cups. I remember Mr. Keshe saying that if we go into space carrying a motion, we're going to have major problems. So how are these cups going to balance out our emotions so that we don't have any emotions when we do travel?
Well, you don't get to take a cup with you.
Who's saying you don't have the motion or emotion?
Emotions.
Emotion.
Yeah, if you travel with emotions,
always you have emotion in some level. You have the emotion. You're not dead, like I say. You are transforming, but you are not dead. You are eternally for infinity in time. You have emotion. Motion like walking, flying, or emotion like love, hate, etc. When you have the transfer of field, you have always motion. Nothing in the universe, in the unicos, it's stable. How to say? Not moving. Yes,
Static.
not moving. Everything is moving. Everything is motion, emotion, field.
everything's in motion. Yeah, I understand that, the principle of that. But I do distinctly remember Mr. Keshe saying about taking emotion into space is not a good thing. I remember him saying that.
Dean.
Yes, John.
I've read a hell of a lot about extraterrestrials, and apparently they don't conceive emotion. That's why we attract them a lot. They're continually observing us because they can't conceive emotion the way we do.
Well, that's a good point. Do we want to take our physicality emotions that are based on our culture and our interactions with people on this planet and its gravity and atmosphere and take that to space and drag that around with us? Or do we liberate ourselves from those kinds of emotions, perhaps? Maybe we can find a different, maybe by, what do you call it, transmuting or transforming those lower emotions, and perhaps there's another realm that we can enter into under those circumstances.
So Rick, the character in Star Trek, Spock, was he correct?
Well, he certainly had superpowers of logic and perception and insight and that kind of thing, correct?
Well, the question is,
and it's not like he didn't lose his personality. Everybody loves Spock probably more than most of the characters. So, it's interesting, but he was supposedly, I guess, devoid of emotion, at least human emotion. Go ahead.
No, my response was, at what conditional level do you wish to go into space? Do you wish to go in the inertia state, the inertia gravitational magnetical, or what we call the plasma, the gravitation? See, that was I think that question referred to the more on the line of being in the physicality state. If you're going to take the spaceship, how do you detach yourself from emotion? So that's the question goes back to, at what level do you imagine yourself going into space? Is it in a vehicle, in a plasma transitional, or in a plasma state of complete detachment from physicality? That's, I think, right. You have to kind of narrow it down a little bit more now into those.
Quite a bit more, let's say. It's good to narrow it down before you leave, especially. So the idea as was just brought up, that you take your body with you, first of all? And if you are taking your body with you, which of the 7 bodies of man are you taking with you? Oh, 7? You didn't know there was 7? You thought there was only one physicality body? Well, surprise, surprise. Perhaps there are 7 bodies. I mean, it's talked about in all the textbooks of our, the ancient textbooks of. You talk about the Akashic body, and they talk about the astral body, and they talk about the soul body, and they talk about the mental body and the emotional body and the higher mental body and the higher emotional body, and so on and so forth. So there's easily 7 that one could come up with, of sort of what do you call it, the doll within the doll within the doll, like the Russian dolls, essentially. Except some of the dolls can maybe go to space, and some of them can't necessarily, or we have to leave our physicality here in order to go with our soul body, let's say.
It's funny how it always comes back to ancient knowledge, that ancient wisdom that's been around for forever. It always comes back to that. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, if it's not so ancient if it's being used actually by a modern day shaman or somebody who has the knowledge. Becomes a living knowledge rather than a something from the past.
So do you think, Rick, that we can have an avatar on a planet and then leave it and then soul travel, then come back to another avatar somewhere else?
Have you ever played video games?
No, I'm not big on that sort of thing, but I'm aware of the.
That's the prime thing that you do in most video games is you create an avatar, or it's created for you, and that's your surrogate that you use within the game, and it goes through and it's, creates havoc in a war game, or it's, just journeying through and observing things in certain games, or interacting and, playing with puzzles or whatever's happening in the particular scenario within the game. Your avatar or your character gets created. Some games it's very well fleshed out, and you select exactly all the different tools and weapons and armor and various aspects that you control about your character. And sometimes it can go on for months and months of building up this character, and you could suddenly lose it one night. And when that you lose it maybe in a battle in Diablo or something like this, and that avatar gets bumped off, and that can be very, very upsetting to some people, because they've identified with that avatar as being them. And, that's the one they've interacted with for months with their friends, and going, and interacting within the game, and maybe outside of the game as well. And suddenly, poof, it's gone. And it'll leave this huge sort of emptiness, as if a friend had died. So as the avatars in the game, perhaps we could look at our physicality in the same way. It's basically an avatar within this game of planet Earth, and we have the option of consciously controlling that avatar, or it could just sort of run around, run amok within the game, thinking that it's all real, when actually there's a higher game, a different dimension, a different realm that is above that is the actual operator, the realm of the operator or the creator. who can see all the workings of the game, doesn't necessarily directly interact. When you go into gaming and you work with your character, you don't necessarily change everything in the game or change the rules of the game and so on. You just change your character and adapt it and use it within the context of the game. Hopefully remembering it is a game and not identifying overly with that characters such that well, I mean, it's got a soul too, right? Maybe it can consist of a few electrons or something, but there's some that say that character within that game, that avatar, keeps on doing stuff when we're no longer working, using that game. We put away the game, we close it down or whatever on the computer, and maybe that little guy or girl in there carries on and has a life within that game. Or maybe it's sleeping during that time. Something to think
Rick, if
about.
there's no time in space, then our avatars, just like the video games, it could be, as you said, we drop them off very quickly or lose them very quickly. There's no time, then this is the game.
But you don't know where, if you drop them off, you don't know what type of atmosphere. I think that's what Mr. Keshe says, that on planet Zeus you might have 7 arms and 7 legs. With games, we don't really get to practice with. We're always in a humanoid form, or we're always on a.
No.
Not always, but we're mostly a humanoid that understands the physics of Earth when we go to different worlds or things like that. But I mean, there's other times, but they don't necessarily allow you, I think, to have 7 arms and 7 legs and things like that too often.
Well, this is an interesting idea, and it's actually something that I want to work with, and I was going to suggest. You can do things, for example, in Second Life, what's called Second Life, you can do things such as create or buy or purchase a airplane or a spaceship or a building, or you can make your own stuff. Basically, you can create your own characters and create your own scenes and things. So one thing that could be done, which I think would be fun and interesting, would be to create a spaceship and then invite people into that scenario within the Second Life program. And then we could possibly show it here or in one of the groups at the same time as being in Second Life. And actually, the characters could sit down within the spaceship setting, and you'd be able to interact with the others that are within that setting. And the idea would be to kind of figure out, what do you do in space? There you are, you're in your spaceship, you take a little journey and you try to simulate like it's going to space. So okay, there you are, you get ready, you launch, and away you go. You're in space. There you go. Yay, you made it to space. Now what? It's kind of like, in a way, being isolated at home from the
coronavirus lockdown.
Lockdown. All right, I've made it to space. Yes. Oh, now what? There's no TVs, there's no theaters, there's nothing here. It's space. It's lots of elbow room, tons of elbow room. Boy, you can stretch your arms. Hello, there's big feedback going on. Menichum, no, thank you.
Rick?
Yes, Chilo.
The 2 sets, it's done.
Aren't you, Mr. Efficient? Okay. Do you want to show a picture, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, if you want, I can
That
show
would be
you.
great. That'd be great.
Let me fix my camera.
I'll ask you start video. I think that will help. I'll stop the share.
One second. I already opened the camera.
Oh, okay. Just a second here.
But I don't know if it's right or.
We do see something there. We see your
top view. Top view.
But we don't. I don't see anything.
It's up at the top.
Well, we see 4 cups. It looks like all together. The bottom ones are cut off a little bit.
Can you hide it? Highlight it.
Let me spotlight that. Should help.
There you go.
You see it there now?
Okay, this is.
I do. I see it.
Okay, I see it. So this is the first cup. This is the second cup.
The participant screen is hiding some of it for some reason. At the top of your image, I can see the participants in the frame. Is that me or is that you?
That might be just yours, I think.
Wait.
Let me just double check here. I don't think there's anything else I can do from this end. I think we're good.
How do I get that off?
Okay.
Maybe
now,
you might be able to drag it across. Maybe it's just a banner.
Okay, now I have 2 sets here.
Okay.
The first one, if you see nano-coated zinc in the middle and normal zinc plate in that side, it's better, let's see. And copper wire in the right side.
Okay.
And connected with the wire. And here, this poor chap, he will gonna be pumped.
What do you mean?
In the middle is zinc plate. Left side, nano-coated zinc plate, and you see the bubbles. So it's already begun. And in the right side is the nano-coated copper.
Nano-coated copper. Okay.
Yeah.
So
nano-coated copper with the zinc. This is something. Yeah. What can I do? This is nothing else I can do. Okay. The first plate's direct connection. The second nano-coated copper with the zinc plate is with the LED. This is the best I can come with. Any suggestion? Let me just open this one.
Is that a piece of wood that holds the center pin?
Yeah. I find this it's very beautifully worked, especially with these jars, you know, not with the glasses or anything else.
What percentage salt have you got, Jalal?
15. It's the same. 15%.
Cool. We're looking forward to hear what you get.
Yeah. Like what do you remember, Rick, the shoe carb?
the shoe, what again?
That creature, the shoe crab, carp.
Oh,
horseshoe crab.
Horseshoe
Yeah,
crab.
horseshoe
Yeah.
crab, yeah. I don't know, maybe.
Gerard, isn't the nano-coated one supposed to be in the middle?
I have no. Okay. If I put it in the middle, there will be a different interaction, because now you will have nano-coated copper with nano-coated zinc plate direct interaction. But in this way, you know, in this way, you have a matter state in the between. Here in this side, what we will have, if we have nano-coated copper with zinc plate, what will you have? With with LED connection.
CO2.
Thank you. And here, nano-coated zinc plate with normal zinc plate. What will you have?
Zinc.
Zinc oxide. Right.
Thank you. And in the end, the whole interaction, it will be, you see, I put it here a little bit different. I put the zinc plate is a little bit longer, and in a way it have only the connection direct with the other part, you see.
Well, can I ask a question? Okay, what are you going to get when you have nano-coated copper and nano-coated zinc?
I don't know. I for myself, I didn't try it. This is the first time I try it.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, you see, you have two nano-coated, so you're also going to get that, whatever that's going to be.
But you know, Mario, in the teaching of Mr. Keshe, especially 118, I know it very good because we discussed it so many times. Mr. Keshe explained the nano-coated material. It's have a wide range of the magnetic field. If you put your nano-coated materials here outside, you will have interaction without putting them in the jar. So if you put nano-coated copper here and nano-coated zinc here, you will have the interaction here without the matter. Because now the magnetic field is more wide. It's coming out, you know, like not like the matter is nearly to the body of the matter state. So let's see what will happen here.
So Jalal, do you not see the wood piece as a conductor?
No, I don't think so.
You don't see that?
No.
So if you took your wires off and just left the three hanging, do you think you'd see a difference?
We can try. We can try. So let's see until the end what will happen here.
Okay, sounds good, Jalal. Thank you.
Thank you. Brought me this idea, Lawrence, yeah? Who brought the idea back?
It was I, Neil. 320. KSW 320. It's for the emotional balancing system. You in that group, Jalal?
Yeah. You know, I thought about it so many times, and even I speak about it because in that time I was watching the old private teaching, and I made the connection between them. But you know, this cup of life and the work after it, the K of Wiki, and all of these things take the whole your time, and I was still working, so I don't have time to do anything, just listening, and theoretically only 60%, 70% of your time listening, and only 10% of your time you are working. That is with the Gans, I mean, it's not enough. Now I am sitting home and I can't do.
So you in lockdown as well, Jalal, in your country?
Actually, I am not. We are not locked down here in Sweden. Here in Sweden, nothing happened outside Sweden. Absolutely. What do you have, guys, there? Nothing. Do you have a virus or something? No, I don't think so. It's only a movie outside here, outside Sweden. Here in Sweden, nothing we have. Be calm, be safe, be happy, don't worry. Nothing happened. Nothing will catch you. So this is our life here in Sweden. This is the government speaks and acts, actually.
Now they're going crazy in Australia. They're closing the borders between the states. Everyone's hiding toilet paper wherever they can. The beans and pasta are gone. The schools are closing. And there's only, in the whole country, there's 20 cases.
Neil, please,
Yep.
can you explain this, really, this thing about the toilet paper? Is it even we discuss it here with the Swedish people? I said, you are caring about food, or you about your, excuse my language, your ass?
That's the Australians. They're more interested in beer, football, and their ass.
No, really, I'm not speaking something wrong, but I want to understand what's happening here. They are fighting for toilet paper, and they leave the food and all the things.
No, people stash food too. This is the thing. They load up big time. All the stores are being sold out here in Canada, and things are slowly kind of winding down basically this week.
Well, it's also from the perspective of the financial system crashing. And do you want to be stuck holding toilet paper or the real stuff when you can't buy it? You know, when the toilet paper fiat currency isn't worth anything, you would rather hold real toilet paper or food than the actual paper monies.
Well, in Australia, we use plastic paper money, and it's not very good for the bottom end.
Especially when it's full of viral contaminants. People in China, they were throwing money out the window, and people weren't picking it up because they thought that the virus was, rightfully so, that the virus is transferred through money.
And there's also opportunists, people were buying toilet paper for, let's say, 10 cents a roll, hoping to sell it for $20 a roll.
Yeah, and they're getting help for that in Canada. That's considered illegal now, and they'll put you actually in jail for it or give you a big fine. And I think in the US too, they are really frowning upon the hoarding of things and reselling stuff. They busted someone here that went to the local park and was selling.
I think we see your screen, Rick, the whole screen.
Yeah, Rick, we can see your desktop.
I like the egg one, the egg yolks file picture.
Yeah, that's better. That was the one that was shown by Mr. Keshe last week.
Right.
This one, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to segue into something, but go ahead.
I just wanted to show this. We were talking about taking pictures of Gans and so on, and I wanted to get this one because it's so strange. This just formed. I shook up the bottle of Gans and put some extra Gans and shook up the bottle, let it sit there, and this enormous crater formed itself in, just maybe 2 or 3 hours or something. And I was a little bit shocked and surprised, you might say.
It's a plastic bottle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do
it
you...
Does, it does have a sort of a bump on the bottom of the bottle, a dimple like that sticks in and sort of different...
Look at the cap. Look at the cap. See, the cap's a different PET. It's a different material. So it's like an energy source, which the Gans type kind of mimics the neck and the top of the bottle, because it's like a different gravitational magnetic field strength.
I hadn't thought of the cap, but I mean, it does. It is the same shape and size as the inner part of that cap. It's true. It's even got a lip that kind of goes around like that. What is also kind of interesting, if you look at the container, I hadn't noticed till recently, the container beside this one, it's got a big dimple in it that goes down. So interesting.
Similar to the opening that it has no cap, right? It's just an open vessel.
Yeah, good point.
So you have your give and take right there. One's giving and the other one's taking.
Yeah, speaking of which, my little bottle is transformed here now. And you can have a quick look at that. It's got a different configuration inside for today. Let me lower the. Okay, so you should be able to see that now, I think, right? See the video, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so inside there, you can see it's got two bumps. One over there and one over there.
Did you see the bubbles?
See how it...
See the bubbles?
Yeah.
So those are the little voids that are created that are like gas, but they're not gas. They're like voids that seek. So that's always the thing, is that there's no oxidation going on within there. So how did the bubble get to below the Gans to become a bubble?
Well, it's a good point. I'll show you something else along those lines that I've noticed. Oops, it changed. Well, I'll have to find the picture of it instead. I've got some other Gans here that has a lot of black bits in it. So I separated it out, and it's got some really strange things. See all the bubbles coming? Whoops. See all the bubbles coming up from that when I disturb it. And so at certain times, this, especially when it was a little bit saltier water, this stuff, look at it, it looks like a brain or something. This stuff will actually float sometimes and go up to the surface. So half of, oh, it's doing it right now. Wow, cool. The whole mass is lifting up to the surface. Oh my God. Boom. And there it is. It's got this huge blob.
What is that,
now.
Rick? What is that? I missed that. What is that?
This is the stuff that's formed at the bottom when the nano-coated coil starts kind of coming apart, maybe from a bit too much electrical power, or just when you know, some fresh salt was added and it knocks off the nano coating, that kind of thing. So I kept all that Gans with kind of grayish and very much black pieces as well. And I'm finding that stuff interesting. Mr. Keshe said to hang on to it, that it might have a special purpose. So you can see all the, there's quite a bit of, I'm going to disturb this, but on the bottom, it's a bit hard to see there, but there is a lot of black pieces. You see all the chunks in there.
Yeah.
And like I say, this, sometimes it goes to the top, sometimes it goes to the bottom. Probably if I shake it or just drop the bottle there, then see big pieces come off the top. And if you shake it enough, it'll probably, there it goes, back down to the bottom.
Go back, go back, go back.
So those bubbles, have something to do with it. And then what happens is the bubbles will actually start self-generating in here, so much that I had this in a mason jar before with a lid on it, and had the lid screwed on tight, and it actually created pressure inside the mason jar. So when I undid the lid, you could hear a from the pressure. And I thought, geez, Gans doesn't usually do that. So that black stuff in there is creating some sort of reaction that might be making hydrogen, or it could be making oxygen. Somehow it's enough that it's actually creating pressure inside. And I thought, that's interesting. Perhaps there's some use for that phenomenon, let's say.
So Rick, I don't know if you remember, but this was what I was trying to show some months ago, of a nanomaterial that produces gas bubbles like a bubbling stone you have in your aquarium, where and the point, and I also said it also creates enough pressure to act like soda pop, where you crack the lid and it comes out. So what I wanted to do, but I haven't got a chance to do, is I wanted to put attach a balloon through like a straw or something, to see if it would inflate the balloon over time.
Right, and then you could
and maybe capture the gas to have it analyzed.
You could put a match to it and see if it explodes, and then it's hydrogen, for example, or some combination of hydrogen and oxygen. It might be CO2, and if you put a match up to CO2, it'll put the flame out. So,
well, what I did notice is that, and I know this is kind of bizarre, but if you watch bubbles, a normal bubble rises to the top at a certain speed. These bubbles are like, kind of like what Mr. Keshe says, when you create a void in space, you're not confined to matter, so you could like go between matter and travel at a higher speed.
They're like little rockets, right?
These bubbles travel faster than a regular bubble under our physical condition.
That's a good point. Yep, you can see them actually right now. There, see the bubbles hitting up there? They're going up pretty fast, faster than, look at that one. This just shot right up. So that's a good point. And it would make sense that if it instead of air, if it was hydrogen perhaps, or a plasmatic bubble, then it would tend to travel through that matter much faster. So
you see it fizzing?
Well, you can see the bubbles coming up, definitely.
I can see it fizzing like you put like an Alka-Seltzer or something in it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what I was saying is that, like when I mentioned how you created that void in the spinning sphere in the lathe that you did, this is another variation on that void, where you're creating a void in a liquid and you're watching it plasmatically travel in a way that's similar to our bubbles of gases, but it's not a gas. It's like a void that seeks to levitate in a way. It's like a levitation, but instead of our gaseous atmosphere, we're witnessing it in liquid atmosphere of sorts. And the speed at which the bubbles travel are faster than any known gases that we could see. Most gases will travel at only a certain speed. Like if you're a diver, you go underwater and you use different mixes of gases. no matter what mix you use, the bubble always travels about the same speed, whereas these bubbles travel much faster, like they're not adhered to our physics that we're used to. And I thought it was a great way to...
But still, a hydrogen bubble would be a lot lighter than a air bubble by 10 times or something like that, probably, or whatever it works out to be. So, with the oxygen in there. So if it is, look at that one. That one shot right up. So,
and you won't find that even with hydrogen, though, that they won't move that fast.
Quite possibly. It'd be a good sort of test to have hydrogen bubbling in these bubbles or something like that. Yeah, that's a good point. But if it actually creates pressure inside, then there must be some gas that's being generated in order to create that gaseous pressure.
Well, that's our current understanding of the way we see it.
True.
But that may not be the case.
Yep.
It's actually, so if you, I don't know how long ago you made this or how long it's been sitting like that, but if you mark the water level that it currently is, and you seal the bottle up, and let's say you let it sit for 6 months, if the action continues, you should see if it's consuming something, then the water level should probably go down a little bit. But is it going down because you're consuming liquid or the hot, whatever is in here, or is it that you're creating a bigger void between the top level of the water and the top of the cap?
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs in that one.
No, I know it's a lot of ifs. But what I'm trying to is to have people look at it in that way of trying to discover if there's something that's right in front of you. Maybe you put it towards, oh well, it's that's how gases act, but it's actually something else, and you're showing it right now, and it's for people to just start analyzing it and looking at it. Not just that, but at the top, what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And how we create lift and motion in our gaseous atmosphere to be the opposite of what we're seeing by creating a gaseous lift in a liquid atmosphere. If that, and it's kind of backwards talk, but it's kind of the way I look at it.
Oh, look, a little puppy face. Yeah, well, there could be something there. Definitely, there's lots of bubbles created in this particular mix compared especially to the one sitting beside it over here. Which doesn't have too much happening that way. And when I shake it up, it's got a couple of odd bubbles, but that's very little.
Well, don't they say for chemistry to apply to that other one that something has to be consumed through some process?
Well, yeah, that may be what's happening. I suspect, like, for example, the black, what I think is nano copper might be converting to different form and giving up its blackness possibly and converting the oxygen to the oxygen gas. I'm not sure. To look at it more.
So
watch it.
If you look at it, it's creating a neutron that we see as a Gans in a gaseous form, in the most simplest gaseous form. So you're creating a neutron that manifests as a Gans in the gaseous because it's coming from a nanosolid, and it's taking the fields and transforming it and becoming a gaseous Gans in a way.
Gassy Gans.
Where it's more on the gaseous side than on the solid side. See how you have a Gans of a gaseous nanosolid, where it's transforming the energy to create the neutron of a gaseous solid. It's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely a lot of action in this one. I was surprised when I saw it one morning and half the stuff was up top and half it was on the bottom, and it was completely clear in between. And it's almost like a miracle. You see how it's already transforming and swelling, and it's like it's always growing, always changing. Quite the stuff.
It may take us thousands of years to figure out what's in that bottle and what's going on.
Cheers.
I hope not.
Love it. Starting to develop a real taste for the Gans water.
So had you not been consuming it all these years?
Not that much. From time to time, I would, depending.
Do you feel at peace now?
I've always been fairly much at peace, but I'm feeling pretty good about the whole process that's going on. I feel at peace with it, and I'm very happy with everything that's progressing, and bring it on. Time for big changes, and we are here to witness it. Yay.
Rick, just wondering whether I could bump in with a bit of a tangent. Amazing seeing the 320 and all the great results out of Iran. And just wondering what we can do to build up our evidence base so that more people can take us seriously.
Well, that's a good point. I was thinking the same thing myself. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the strategy of presenting this information, we all have this challenge. We're so excited about it, but trying to put it into an elevator pitch for people to understand is, the first challenge. But then as soon as people hear these, amazing stories, they want to see some evidence. And I've got to get a blood test this week, and I'm just wondering whether, if I took along my 1 cup, 1 life mix, to see whether they could apply it to any of the basic illnesses they might have, and see whether during these desperate times there might be some leeway where they would test it. Has there been sort of...
That's exactly my thinking on it as well. I'd like to get, but just bringing in the Gans water and having them test is not likely they would be able to test it, first of all, and they probably wouldn't want to accept anything at this point in time from anybody because of the social distancing whole thing. But if we can get the university to do some actual solid tests and show the decontamination effects or the depletion of the virus effects or something like that, some sort of testing scheme, and also to certify the materials as being non-toxic. There's kind of two lines of action on that, and then we got something solid with the government. They've got things they're testing now that they're putting all kinds of funds into experimental combinations, especially of these different vaccines that they have. Old vaccines they're trying in different combinations and so on and so forth. So there is room for experimental things right now, but they still have to be approved through Health Canada or the US FDA or whoever, different agencies, in order for professionals to be using such things. So this is, unless they they have the Emergency Measures Act that they're enacting both in the US and Canada. So under that act, they're allowed to, the government is allowed to bend the rules, let's say, for the health aspects, so they can use certain health devices that were, say, in the welding industry, and they can use that respirator in the medical industry and that kind of thing. There's more crossover now than there was before. So there is an opportunity, perhaps. But
can I add something there? You know, I've been a teacher my whole life. And something I learned early on, one of the first things I realized I learned is you can never teach anybody anything that doesn't ask you. They just don't take it. They don't accept it. So you cannot just go offering this stuff to people because they won't accept it. Just out of, if it's free, especially, it must be worthless on that alone. But there's just a psychology with people. Until somebody is desperate enough to ask you for help, you can make the presence of it known to people, but unless they ask you for the help, you cannot give it to them. Most of the time, they will not accept it. And there's another thing, is this virus was put out by the same people who run the medical industry. It's the Rockefeller medicine, I call it, the Rothschild medicine. They're the ones that put this virus out. They really don't want to cure. They don't want to cure for cancer because they're the ones that are putting the carcinogens in the food. They really want to kill off people. So you have
no, they don't want to kill them. To kill them, it means you get rid of all your profits. They want you just to be quick, not kill.
Well, it's not just profits, it's a eugenics thing. It's literally a population culling and all that stuff. But I mean, my point is, the only thing you can really do is make it known that you have a solution. And then you have to wait for people to ask for it. I put out on a WeChat group, there's a couple hundred people on there, half of them Chinese, half of them foreigners. And now they're sort of spread out all around the world. I immediately, the first week, I put a link to the Cup of Life video. And what I found is a lot of people, there were a number of people who put up other things. Oh, here, use these essential minerals, proven to be effective against viruses. Just making that up. And then, oh, by the way, I sell these essential minerals. Other people, well, I have access to these vitamins and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's positioning themselves, trying to make a profit. And not one person really looked into it. But of course, none of those people in the group are sick. They don't know anybody that's sick. So they don't really care, right? And they're not gonna care unless they get desperate. See, and then somebody might ask, and then, okay, there's the solution. You cannot, people won't accept this. It's really what Mr. Keshe said. They're not going to accept it out of a love for technology. They're going to accept it out of a desperation for their, because they're, what do you call it? Out of a fear for their own existence. But if they get scared,
a lot of people have sure accepted it because there's now millions of people around the world that are using this technology. So
well, yeah, sure. But I mean, yes, but people basically who are desperate and sick. You don't find people that are not desperate and sick beating down your door to get this, just as a preventive measure.
What I was going to suggest, because I work opposite a university group called bio21.org.au. They're one of the more serious pandemic disease. They have Ebola across the road from my work and are always testing on it. But coming back to this pitch angle, what I'm looking for is some people who want to work on a Google Doc to develop a scientific language to present to them, perhaps in an email before I go there. Because right now, it's costing billions of dollars for every single day this world economy is shut. So the powers that be are very interested. And of course, there'll be different factions within that power structure for and against what we're proposing, but now is a primary time. We should be mobilizing and preparing the information. And I recently finished book 2 and found the chapter on CO2 sequestration fascinating, not only because of Mr. Keshe's description, but because of the way he presented the information in such a scientific manner, with a number of graphs, a number of cross-references, footnotes, all those sort of things. So surely amongst the millions of people who are into plasma science, there must have been a few people who could help compile such a document.
But the problem isn't that. It's already been done. The doctors have been doing that. The real problem is medical doctors get their license from the same people who own the pharmaceutical companies. They're licensed to sell those pharmaceuticals. They're licensed to sell those vaccines that are licensed by the pharmaceutical companies. That's how they got their license. If they're caught selling other things, they go to jail. They lose their license. They have repercussions, see? So it's this control of the medical establishment.
Yeah, we all know that, Mario. I mean, everyone knows that, but this is a primary time as a campaigner. You work to jam your foot in the door by any means necessary, and the Iranians are doing it the best. I mean, they're working with the frontliners, helping them deal with their illnesses, and it cascades on from there. But unfortunately, where I am in Melbourne, there's only 2 or 3 of us into it. But I can see on a global scale, there's an opportunity to test this and show that it works against, where is our documentation on Ebola? What about tuberculosis? All these different diseases, surely we must have it somewhere on file somewhere. Dr. Rodriguez, someone, how do we compile that information and start putting it into a document, or at least thinking about doing that?
Carl, the problem that you have is that the English words, most of the technical words are patented and owned by people. So that's kind of the issue that Mr. Keshe had in the beginning, where he used the word plasma, and there was this person that wanted him to use another word because they're trying to coin it and patent certain words. So that's why I'm trying to move us towards creating new definitions that don't rely on words that somebody holds the copyright to, actually. You think that words would be freedom to use to express yourself, but they're really words that are owned by other people that are looking to get benefits financially from words. So these documents that are created are they're like sales slips that you're trying to sell things. And that kind of goes back to what Mario was saying, is that if you try to give someone a gift, they don't, or you give something for free, they don't want it because they don't have necessarily, there's a value to it. Not that there isn't, but it's like trying to help someone with cancer that doesn't want, they want their cancer. They created their own cancer, so why would they want to have the cure for the cancer? I don't mean to be harsh in saying that, but it's kind of like that same adage where you're trying to give them a second chance, but they wouldn't have created the condition in the first place if they were looking. But perhaps they changed their mind, and you're hoping that they do. So I understand what you're trying to do, but it's like these words that you use, you got to create your own new definitions and begin to teach those. And that's a huge thing to overcome, I think.
Well, let's get back to the point, which is, what evidence do we already have that's already been accumulated? We've got lots of evidence through the Plasma Scientific Journal, for example. And there's a bunch of clicking. I think, Carl, there's something going on in the background, perhaps with your microphone there rubbing. Sorry, my mic's off. what evidence do we already have? And I was trying to compose a list of that earlier today, actually. When we think about it, for example, in the last few Knowledge Seekers workshops, we've got such things as the electron microscope, FESEM pictures of the Gans, and the reaction of the main people that are running the largest nanotechnology lab in Iran, how they were amazed at the structure, and they could think of all kinds of uses for this material just by looking at the structure under the electron microscope and seeing the voidnesses and the crystal structure and so on. So, I mean, that's just one piece of evidence, and you can show the actual pictures and the whole thing. And there's somebody that knows nanotechnology, that's, you know, relevant. It's like, oh, wow, that's quite interesting. Look at that structure. Yes, I can see how those plasmatic voids would, you know, create some kind of solarons or something. They get into, let them do the technical language about how they perceive how that might work. If we show them the basic, you know, pictures that this is what, under certain magnification or certain conditions, this is what was found, then perhaps they can run with it from there, and let them, the same as the guys doing the pictures, they have their own lingo, they have their own language about how to describe the process that they take the pictures, and, you know, the different aspects of what we're looking at, and so on and so forth. That's their specialty, you might say. So they're good with that language. Same with, there's other evidence that came forward. For example, the swine flu trials in China last year. That's relevant. There's the trials with the body enhancement, universal body enhancement unit, and how, you know, the results with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's in that case, and many other examples. We have examples of the lab rats that had were tested with the Ganses, and the Ganses were found to be non-toxic through that lab rat test. And many people ask, well, what happens if I eat the Gans? And you know, we keep telling them, well, don't eat the Gans, just drink the Gans water that's above the Gans once it settles, and so on. But some people just don't know. So it's good to have some backup in that case, that you can say, well, this is what we found through these experiments, these lab experiments, and this is what the scientists or doctors have discovered. And if we put together kind of a sort of a portfolio of that, of those perspectives, then when someone says, well, what proof do you have that this isn't going to kill me? Well, we have these non-toxic aspects here. And also, if you look at the organic certification, the encyclopedia of all the materials that you're allowed to use in organic farming, you'll find that both copper and zinc are one of the only materials that they allow to be used in organic farming. So it's actually a natural process as well. And that's another, you know, aspect that you can brag about in a way, or, you know, just present as what would you say, as support information for those that are doubting the process, and you know, thinking that that it just doesn't have validity. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I love the sound of that, Rick. I'd be very interested as someone who writes public policy as an economist to help develop the language around this. I'm sure we've got plenty of data out there. We've got plenty of people who have connections with independent research centers. I know that we could, for example, test CO2 Gans on petrol, for example, and have that independently adjudicated and get 3 different centers from around the world to do that. Wow, there we go. We have a scientific, a momentum towards proving this can purify serious water issues. And from that, we build it upwards. But I love what you're saying.
I think I was going to say, I think the best evidence, because it's going to take actually to move the mountain of all the things that are going on, the people that are owned and the whole system and everything. The most beautiful thing was in the 320 where you had the brother who's a doctor and they were both in the same room. Either one of them are wearing masks or anything like that. And then you have the doctor that was wearing masks and and he just stood there happy, taking care of his brother, bringing him back. It's going to take something like that where a doctor maybe who does this goes into the hospital where the virus is just devastating people. He goes in there and starts helping people. It's going to take that kind of Herculean effort, I think, for people just to say, whoa.
Yeah.
I heard a voice, a familiar voice. Hello,
Hi, Rick. Hi. We are doing that now in a specific town given to Keshe Foundation. We have taken the only hospital which has had over hundreds of infected people. They don't have facilities. They are looking after them at home. And as of 2 days ago, the doctors are taking video of the patients. Everything is recorded. And the doctors are saying what is the conditions and how it's been. And in past 2 days, the emergency section, which is 10 beds, plus the emergency room with the oxygens, has reduced to 2 or 3. Most of the patients have been discharged because they recovered. And now the Keshe Foundation team in Iran, with the permission of the government, we have taken 100 cup of life, actually 120 cup of life, to the central hospital. And now, since yesterday, the doctors start calling people from home in to come into the emergency, and they do the test to see if they have the virus, which they show, and then they give them a cup of life bottle, and they're told how to use it, and they go home. And from tomorrow, they're going to be called back to see the evolution, how it's gone, and then they'll be given a cup of life. It means the whole family is going to be protected with a cup of life. So we are doing it in a hospital by the supervision of the central government, because the team, there is a talk we'll discuss with this tomorrow, that one of the doctors made a mistake thinking that he can reveal the position, and he posted the picture of the first woman which is recovered. And he was not supposed to. And the government officials told him, even though you have access to media, you know where it is, you shouldn't post anything till the final result. So the lady had a 57 level oxygen, which is near death. And now she is up to 90 and she's been discharged in 48 hours. So we are doing it now officially through hospitals, doctors, and we are gathering data in the background. They are testing, for example, this morning test was done that they sprayed all the hospital with Gans #1, and they went around and they corrected samples from all the floors and the walls of the hospital, and they let it culture till this morning to see what's the effect as of number one on the bacteria, not on the virus. And then they're going to culture the virus. We have started a systematic public gathering of this information. So what you say is already started, but it is scientific, it's done by doctors. First thing we did, we covered all the doctors and nurses in the hospital. I asked at the beginning of the protocol, I want all the emergency teams to be covered. And now in 3 days, because I have a picture, I can put it, they had 10 beds full when we got in 3 days ago, and all the beds are empty now, only 3 people left. So, and you see the beds empty. So we're taking the pressure off. And if we show this in next 2 days working, Iranian governments will go nationally and internationally, we offer it worldwide. But it's been done. We achieved this through hard work in Iran with the Keshe Foundation. And one of the most amazing thing was there is data coming up that they say one of the reasons that we don't see so much death and the growth of what do you call it, corona in Iran is due to Keshe Foundation reaching the affected people immediately. So at the moment, something like 5,000 cups a day or more is distributed across Iran only to the ones who they said are affected. So the minute they call in, the support team delivers within hours. And if they are in remote distances, transport companies, delivery companies have accepted to distribute these freely across Iran. They don't charge for it. And they tell them, they go and pick it up and they deliver. So by the end of this week, we have 120 cases in one. This town is isolated. Nobody can go in. It's military blocked. So there is no increase or decrease. We have a closed, captured situation. And then we are testing in a university hospital some 1,000 kilometers away. So this has started thanks to the government of Iran. And we are in it. And it's one of the hot spots in Iran at the moment. So every single person will be covered by tomorrow with a cup of life. The Iranian team were working flat out last night because I said to them, it's no use giving the cup. We can't teach these people how to make their breathing system and how to extract it. So they went out, the whole team, about God knows how many of them, and they made 120 breathing system. And they went and they got the syringes. By this afternoon, they'll be in the hospital. And then anybody comes in, a full set is given, shown how to breathe, how to spray, and the data is collected by central government. We tried to do this with China, it didn't happen. And today in Iran, we started 3 days ago, and the picture of the video of the lady by accident was shown, released by the doctor who nobody was supposed to know is one of the team of doing this. And officials immediately withdrew it. And we had one gentleman who was allowed in 5 o'clock in the morning near death. By the time they got to him, he died. They couldn't reach him. They couldn't change the situation. He's totally calcified. And officials have put this case aside because it was not what we call officially locked in. But we are there, what you're asking for. It'll be governmental report by Iranian, what they call it, the highest team allocated by the government, and we are working at that level. So you'll be answered. We will have answer within the next 7 days. The fact is not it. But one problem we have, which we started this morning, is not a problem. It says that we are following with the people in the hospital the medical protocol, which means we cannot say for sure if it is the extent of the power of the technology. So now, with the cups coming, and we are supporting people outside the 120 infected people in one area of about 50,000, then from the results of those, we get a public figure. If we get no death, or we get, because at the moment, the death the death, what we call count, is very high in Iran. Very, very high. If they are not supported or even supported. Very few people recover, but the second infection, it brings death. So now what we've done is just coming every 2 days to the hospital. They're given around about 150 ml of Gans in a 1 liter bottle, and they're told how to use it. Now each one has a cup at home. We see how many will die, how many will survive, how many will recover. They have to come back to the hospital every 48 hours to report. So this is now for the first time has been done. And I would like to thank those who have worked very hard. At the moment, as we speak, the Iranian elite team, which are part of the national security and the Sepah, are sitting with the government officials in Tehran, planning the next step. I was just in a meeting, I just came out about 10 minutes ago. It's a central decision. It's like a military precision we have taken because the government has seen the results. The security services, the army, the Sepah, the Minister of Health of Iran are sitting in this Iranian chat group, and they are seeing the results, what people are coming back. So they've seen the results from people who are using it, and at any time, there are hundreds of people online. The number now has gone to 26,180, and there are 2,319 people live online. They are reading all the videos, they are looking at all the documents and listening to the videos, and everything is very systematically done. And because the government now has realized we have brought such a change, they are working with us. We are inside and we are learning a lot. We are learning a lot. Now we are preempting number 3 virus, which is stomach and intestine. Now in Iran, we've gone directly for 3, and we see a lot of people are responding, which means we would have had death in 12 days, 14 days, 10 days. There is no infection of the lung, but now it's gone into intestines. And as I said to the doctors, the minute the people come, they get tested for both, from top to toe with gas number 1, and then from under the breast to the toe with gas number 2. If they show pain in any, they will do, they show. And people, in one of the official meetings, something very strange happened which shook the government, is that as they went to present the technology to the officials, the scientists, a panel of them, elite scientists and panelists would have decided, they showed them how to use, how this works. They said, we can spray on you. And they saw it and they all said nothing. But after the meeting, some of the officials called back and said, we got a headache and we got a stomachache. And so we are infected. And in a way, immediately the response team took the material to them to their homes. And they've tested it themselves. People who are making a decision in Iran are, by actually trying to explain to them, this is what I tell you all the time, you carry it in your pocket and you say, do you want to know if you are infected or not? Just spray them. And the officials were infected in the meeting. But if they say they're infected, they lose their position. They have to be, what do you call it, isolated. They didn't say anything. They went home and they called the elite team, which we have established. Confidentially, can we have the material home urgent? Because after spray, we had a pain head and the chest one. So this is the problem we saw in China. When we gave it to the Chinese leadership, the other officers in the CPC, they went to our team and said, can we have the water? Just asking for it. The CPC officers of security services in China became producer of waters for their colleagues, that they don't lose their jobs. Now in Iran, it's very clear. We passed that. And it's going to come up. Maybe we need another week. And if the decision is made to go national, then you will hear it. But the reports now, even some of the international reports coming up in the background, they say the drop in the number of deaths in Iran is due to the spread of the waters by the Keshe Foundation. They are taking up the sick people, so government doesn't need to do a statistics that will come up. And this has got a good result. I came here not for this. I came here to ask you something else, Rick. You have a dossier of all the cups around the world somewhere, I was told.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you send it to me with a flag of, or if they say from which country? We are making a video to be shown tomorrow with all the cups from all the nations around the world. Just a flag.
I got the language beside the names of the people that I know.
Okay,
language.
If you put the language, it's okay. We put the flag on.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep,
If you
I can send them in a folder. I had a bigger folder, but I weeded out the ones that weren't quite so appropriate. So these are mostly edited and mostly acceptable.
Ready to use.
You'll have to go through and approve them yourself personally. So. Yep,
it's okay. It's just that they're putting the video. The team in Iran is putting the video to show how the cup is used internationally.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've got maybe 80 images or something like that.
Okay. Caroline told me you have it. That's why I came in to ask you. I'll send you a message.
Yes, I wanted to, after the show, I was going to send them to you. So should I send them through Telegram? Does that work okay?
Send it to my Telegram, yeah.
Okay. It'll be a pretty big file, but that's okay. You can work.
Doesn't matter. They go through it and they sniff it out.
Okay,
and
I'll do that.
All the chats in all the Keshe Foundation Corona chat teams, if you could have images.
Yes, I see that. And who's is there somebody that'll collect those images then?
No, the team is done. Yeah. We have a team which go across and they collect it, but we want to know 1 or 2 from each nation.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that after the show here.
Yeah, sorry to bump in like this.
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Are you taking any questions while we have you here, or are you busy?
Yeah, why not?
In the background, probably. But
I came for the headache, so I better wrap my head. Okay.
Okay.
Any question, Mr. Keshe?
Yes.
Okay, gracias. John, ¿me puede alguien apoyar con el español y el inglés?
Sí, adelante.
John, John, gracias, Rick, gracias, John, gracias, Mr. Keshe. Esta pregunta es importantísima.
This question is very important.
Mr. Keshe, usted ya habló acerca del CH3, de alejarlo, de no hacerlo, ¿es correcto?
You have spoken about leaving the CH3 out of this, put it as far away as possible.
Yes.
I know. Yes, go ahead.
Ok. Entonces, yo tengo una pregunta en contradicción y yo necesito responderme esa pregunta y gracias a Mr. Keshe y gracias a todos ustedes. ¿Por qué en el taller número 102?
Déjame, I've got a contradictory question for you. Adelante.
Yeah.
¿Por qué en el taller 112 se nos pide que tengamos de respaldo 3 Gans básicos? CH3, CuO2 y ZNO junto con el CO2. Entiendo el magnesio y el calcio y lo demás. Pero ¿por qué siempre sí y después no?
In the 113, we were told to have the 3 basic ones, CO2, zinc oxide, and CH3. And now you have changed your mind.
No. You're talking, go in what topic we are. CH3 is a food. The virus uses it as energy. Those are the essentials. When it comes to the feeding time, we tell you how to use the CH3. You have to understand. Do you want to translate?
¿Entendiste, Fernando?
No, nada. Si me ayudas.
Nada,
Sí,
nada.
tienes razón. Debes tener los tres básicos, pero el CH3 por ahora hay que alejarlo. Ya les informaré porque esto es para alimentación.
Es correcto, entonces no
No
estábamos
debemos
equivocados.
alimentar el virus. Ya esto agrego yo.
Let
No
me,
debemos alimentar el virus. We haven't got to feed the virus. Isn't this the straightforward answer?
Solamente
let,
quiero...
let me explain to you something simple. In public, you have 3 or 4 basic Ganses. To me and to the team of the Keshe Foundation in the background, we have about 50 or 60 basic.
Para el público, nosotros tenemos 3 o 4 Ganses básicos y nosotros aparte tenemos más de 60.
And the CH3 is never used in conjunction with the virus at this stage.
El CH3 no debe ser usado en conjunto con el virus en ningún momento.
If you, let me explain. If you work in the medical team or agricultural team or producing materials,
si trabajas en la agricultura o en la parte medicinal, trabajando con estos materiales,
we measure the percentage of each one, that it makes such a big difference.
nosotros medimos el porcentaje de cada uno, que hace mucha diferencia.
So we know what we're talking about. We don't contradict, but when we advise, it's for the purpose specifically for that job.
Pero cuando decimos que cumplan con esto es específicamente para el trabajo que se está para cumplir.
Es correcto, como dice Mr. Keshe, muchas gracias porque ha sido aclarada la duda. No estábamos equivocados, solamente hay que entender.
I have a question.
Gracias, John. Mr. Keshe. Sí entiendo y no estábamos equivocados nadie, pero tenemos que comprender qué es lo que estamos haciendo. Yo entiendo lo que usted acaba de decir.
Yes, I understand we weren't misled, but now we're doing this and we understand what we have to do.
Usted mismo puede revisar su taller número 66 y habla acerca de la hemoglobina, el potasio, el zinc y el hierro.
Fernando, él nunca revisa sus materiales, lo da y no lo revisa.
No, muchas gracias a todos. Siento que, honestamente, Mr. Keshe, qué bueno que le digo. Muchas gracias por todo el conocimiento. Yo me siento satisfecho, honestamente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshe. I've told him that you never revise whatever you've said beforehand.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there still an English-speaking way for doctors to contact through a Zoom channel or anything like that anymore?
What do you mean?
So if doctors want to talk to you or they have questions, is there a private Zoom channel still for the English-speaking? Or
we have one for the medical team. It was set up for the Iranian medical team. I can set up for the international medical and the doctors. We only allow doctors in.
I understand.
Yes, we can do that. Are you a doctor?
No, we're trying to help the first-line supporters, and they're kind of wanting to circumvent the whole hierarchy and try to find out for themselves. But
no, we don't allow that because we've seen some abuses, especially a couple of people who have changed it the way they thought. They don't follow the procedure. That's why in Iran, we have only doctors. We don't allow nobody else.
No, not in that regard. What I meant was that doctors that want to find out more information, because if I point them at the website or the wiki, sometimes it's hard to navigate for them. So if there's a way for doctors to come online and talk to you, I can't find a link for anything.
Yes, yeah, we try. I try to speak to Stanley and see how we can do this. We have a list of doctors which are registered as doctors with the foundation. We can link it to those, and if it's a doctor which is certified, we give them, because to doctors we open a lot of things which cannot be in public. In the Iranian channel, we allowed a guy who was part of the national security to be in because they wanted to monitor, and he picked the knowledge and he went and splashed it all over the internet. And they literally had to go and clean everything he's done because he thought it's very important for people to know. I said, no, this is the doctors. This is a private chat, what we are doing. Public doesn't need to know this. So we are very careful because we have people who translate in the medical side and they take the thing and run with it everywhere because they think they're translators. We had this many times in the medical team. And then they start advising people because they read the private chats of the doctors.
Well, so what I've done is I pointed them to like the swine flu paper that you produced to kind of get an idea of the things that we're talking about, but I didn't know if there was a more technical for doctors.
We have two on the chat for doctors. One is we set up only doctors between the Iranian National Security, the Iranian Intelligence Medical Team, SEPA medical team for Corona, which is 15 doctors on that board, Ministry of Health, which is 12 doctors on the board of Corona. The Keshe Foundation has 3 doctors who with their name would not be disclosed. And we have a team from the, what we call the what they call it, Ayatollah Khamenei's office. They have a team on their own on the university. So we have a team of about 40 doctors, and we don't add any more to it. And everything goes there. The doctors get response from hospitals around the country. They come back to ask a question, we respond, or we tell them what, they go back to the district. It's well set up in Iran. And we have one which is for the doctors who are not part of that group. They come in, and what they did in Iran, we have a list that all the doctors in Iran can be found with their telephone numbers, where they are at the time they're on duty, they're off duty. Any doctor in Iran who's got a certificate as a medical doctor has a public registration number and a telephone, so you can reach them immediately anywhere in Iran. So what the team done with the permission from the government, we added the list of 25,000 doctors into this list. So 25,000 doctors in one district have been tested. Now, in next week, we go nationally. All the doctors in Iran will have a Keshe Foundation link. And they all come in. Many of them come and just, we have a holding rate of 75, 78%. Means 22% of the doctors leave because they don't understand it. And so we're watching. Mainly psychologists are leaving because it's not their field. Mainly people who are like skin things, they don't leave. All the heart surgeons, all the respiratory section doctors, they're all staying on the chat, and we inform them very rapidly, one after another. And regularly, all the videos you see is sent to them. So we have taken charge of this section, and then there's going to be another 100,000 doctors will be added within the next, hopefully, week. We've done that for Iran. And so once the government gives us the green light to go, all these doctors will be sent a message to immediately to follow the protocol and what it is. But internationally, we have to do it. This is the freedom we have as a foundation in Iran. China curtailed it, and now they're getting hit by the second version. Nobody knows how they're going to cover it up. And a lot of deaths are coming in China with the second and the third virus, not with the lung. So what they are doing, actually, we've seen cheating from the Chinese government from day one, more or less. and that is they are not considering the corona in the stomach, corona in the brain, or corona into the neurosystem. And this is what is killing now, and it's killing massive. We've seen in Iran, we've seen in Italy, we see through the Keshe Foundation in England, the team we work in the background with, that now women are hemorrhaging blood. Hemorrhaging blood heavily. The virus has gone into the womb system, and we're trying to stop the hemorrhage. They are hemorrhaging through their gums, and Chinese are not talking about it. It cannot be any different in China than Iran. And this, they say the new virus has come, is totally different. They're just trying to cover up, and doesn't work. The Chinese are opening the whole country just for the lung infection. But this, what we call digestive system, is going to create havoc. And we're telling all the Chinese Keshe Foundation regularly, cover yourself with cup number 2, because if you are 3 to 4 weeks behind China, and we are seeing such a huge increase in it, and we see it in Italy, there's no temperature, there is no fever, huh? And suddenly, I was talking to one guy before I come on this teaching of Rick, about 10 minutes, half an hour before. He says, because he's gone through the first cup and they took to him the second cup, I said, you cover this from your, under your lung to your testicles, because you might get this string of pains in it, because he had the respiratory one. He said, I didn't want to be impolite, but I've had this pain for nearly a week. I'm getting like electric shock in my testicles. And I said, this is it, this we got to. And Chinese won't do it, don't report it, but 100% this guy would have been dead in the next 14 days. 100%. Long body changes, but when it goes into the digestion system and testicles and the rest of it, you have to watch. We all get infected. Even you just need to overlook it and it'll hit you. You cover yourself continuously for next 3 months, 6 months, because the evolution of it is so rapid. Even Bill Gates is giving himself all the injections he hasn't got for these yet, because they didn't calculate it. This is the beauty of it. Just test yourself, make the cup 2. Just don't see if you're happy with the cup 1. You have to now compulsory, if you want to stay safe, make cup 2, test your body on the soft tissue, white tissue, and on the red tissue, which is usually your muscles, your intestines, your kidneys. You will see a very yellow urine. If you pass water, if you can pass water twice, you see a white stuff on it when you start using the Gans water. This is the calcium which body has rejected that you have freed. What happens? You release the energy from it. Now you have, good morning. Now you have the bacterial infection. And when you start using the bacterial infection, like parasite, what do you call it? Amoxicillin, now the seed has stayed behind. You can't destroy the chalk, you can't destroy the bone. So the body is rejecting the bone, the calcium. And you see a white dust in your urine. You'll watch it, you'll understand the extent of it. I really thank the Iranian government to give a freedom to the Keshe Foundation. They closed everything anybody was working in this area. They gave us a very free hand, but they stayed with us. Thanks to the Keshe Foundation team in Iran, and we're monitoring. You see your stool become black or reddish, then it shows it's in your digestion system. Monitor your, what you call, your excrement. Monitor your urine continuously, then it gives you a feel. If even get a hardness of the stomach, you just keep at it, it'll wash it out. It depends what the strongest strand of it is the Italian strand with the stomach and the Iranian. Chinese are not reporting to us, so we don't know. They're hiding like anywhere they can not to report. And they've opened China from today in most of the districts. We're going to see mayhem in China. And they reported the first one. When the Chinese report one case, it means they have thousands.
Mr. Keshe, I just wanted to clarify, to cover yourself from head to toe, you could add a small bit of CuO to your Cup of Life 1 spray bottle, and that would cover you from head to toe as preventative?
No, you cannot use Cup of Life 2 from lung upwards. We don't have that much muscle tissue, and the virus has not gone into the muscle yet. Yeah?
So you would need 2 sprays then?
Two sprays, yeah. The spray 1 you can use head to toe. The spray 2 you use from under the breast to the toe, because it shows different results. Even if you have abnormal digestion problems, even if you don't have the virus, you keep on drinking from both cups. You drink from cup 1 and cup 2, 50 ml, 100 ml a day. Even if you have abnormalities, even if you have a ulcer, if you have digestion problems, if you have kidney problems, if you have a diabetic problems, we don't go claiming anything, but the reports now the hospitals are sending out from the patients, they have, it shows us the power of this cup. They're amazed. If you listen to the old lady who's the mother of the doctor in the hospital and the Keshe Foundation supporter, she is the mother of the 2 boys in hospital. One Keshe Foundation supporter and the other head of Corona division being sick. She says, I've spread it now, even my diabetic has come down. Even I have a breakfast and my diabetic is at 11. And the swelling in my leg has gone. We try to keep this Corona cup concentrated on Corona. And then you will see the effect of it in the coming time on other things.
So what was the purpose of the Twinity cups?
You have to be on top of it. We will show a new thing tomorrow, a new dimension, which will affect all of you. And if the situation goes to military intervention by governments, then your position changes. I was talking to Armin about a few hours ago, and he says, do you know what's happening, Mr. Keshe? I said, what? I'll explain this tomorrow, but you should know it now. He says, I was driving in LA, and do you know, food shops are empty. Do you know where there's queue of people? 20 people, 30 people, every 2 meters, they're queued up and the shop is full. I said, where? He said, gun shops. They are selling guns like crazy in the United States.
Yeah, but they just closed those, so they completely closed them now in LA.
Yes, but why do the people buy guns in this crisis?
Fear.
It means that, you know, the governments cannot secure them. At the end of it, you see, psychological pattern will be people, poor people, people who have no money, people who could not support themselves to buy food to be stored. Where do they go first? Shops are empty. People have bought it into their houses. The big houses are well established. Where would you go? Do you understand? And would you go in and knock and says, can you give me some food? Or would you go with a gun? And in the house, would you say for them to come and take it, or you protect yourself? There is a beautiful joke has been put by a Dutch guy on the Dutch channel, and it explains a lot. He has a pile of toilet roll, tomato ketchups, tomato paste, pasta and everything, a big table. And he says, I went out shopping today and I was going to supermarket. I had no money. And I asked the Dutch man to give me his shopping because I had no food. And he was so kind that he gave me the food, all he had, all his shopping. And he's put the shopping on the table. And then he shows a machine gun. He says, this is tomato, this is this.